Good morning, friends. In yesterday's lecture, we saw the structure and the working of the human eye. I hope you have learned all the parts of the human eye and the function of each: the cornea, the iris, the pupil, the crystalline lens, the ciliary muscles, the retina, the optic nerve, vitreous humor, and aqueous humor. So, we have seen a normal working eye will give us the correct vision. Now, in today's lecture, we'll first see the power of accommodation. We did this in the previous chapter. Now what you already know here is we can see faraway things and nearby things by the contraction and the relaxation of the lens, which is done by the ciliary muscles. So when we have to see some object far away, the lens has to become thin. It becomes thin, the focal length increases, and the image is formed exactly on the retina. When we see a near point, the lens becomes thick, means the convergence is more and the image is formed on the retina in both the cases. So this is the normal vision that we should be having. The power of accommodation of the eye to focus the image on the retina. But sometimes there are some defects of vision. The eye may gradually lose its power of accommodation. Now we see why does this happen. Okay, so if the eye loses the power of accommodation, the person cannot see the objects distinctly or clearly. The vision becomes blurred due to the refractive defects of the eye. What does refractive defects mean? There is the cornea. We saw yesterday when the cornea becomes opaque, it leads to cataract. And the remedy is a cataract surgery. Now we see the other defects of vision here. Refractive defects means when the refraction is not proper. So these defects are myopia, also called nearsightedness, hypermetropia, also called farsightedness, and presbyopia. There are other defects also like astigmatism, but it is not in the part of the syllabus. You can see the information on the internet. Okay, so now we are going to study the defects and the correction of these defects. So first is myopia. Myopia is also known as nearsightedness. So as the word implies, nearsightedness means we can see nearby objects, near sight. The eye has got near sight means it can see nearby objects, but they cannot see distant objects distinctly. So remember the name, myopia is nearsightedness. Nearsightedness means to see nearby objects clearly. So the objects at the near point can be seen clearly because the image is formed exactly at the retina. But a person with this defect has the far point nearer than infinity. We know the far point of the eye is infinity. But this person who has got myopia cannot see up to infinity. The person can only see up to a distance of a few meters. Now why does this happen? We'll see why does it happen, because the lens should become thin. Yes, the lens should become thin, means the focal length should increase. The focal length should increase to see far away objects. Now the defect rises because the ciliary muscles are not working properly and cannot make the eye lens thinner. So what happens? Because the lens remains thick, the light is not focused on the retina but is focused at a point nearer than the retina. So the distant object is formed in front of the retina and not on the retina. Now why does this happen again? Because the lens cannot become thick. The lens cannot become thin. The lens remains thick. Now This defect may arise the reason excessive curvature of the eye lens. Excessive curvature means the lens has become thick, or elongation of the eyeball. So based on these two things, you can see that the eye lens remains thick, the light gets converged faster, yes, in front of the retina, and so the image is blurred. Now, what to do to focus this light exactly on the retina? So light has to be diverged a little. To diverge the light, we use a corrective concave lens. So depending upon what the refraction is, we have to take a concave lens, because concave lens diverges the light. So we have to select a concave lens of suitable power. Now I hope you remember in the previous chapter we did, power is the reciprocal of focal length and measured in diopter. This we did in the previous chapter. So every lens has got a power which is the reciprocal of the focal length. So the cure of myopia, the remedy of myopia is a correct concave lens which will divert the light a little and bring the image back on the retina, and the defect is corrected. Okay? Now how do you measure this? When you go to an optician, yes, then he will have different lens put in front of your eyes till you can see clearly. Sometimes it may be one lens or a combination of many lenses, and together they will give you the direct reading, the number of your spectacles. So when you say I've got a 0.5, a 0.25 spectacle means it is the power of the lens. So in myopia, you need a concave lens. Why concave lens? Because the lens that remains thicker, image is formed before the retina. So light has to be diverged, so the image forms on the retina. Similarly, the next defect is hypermetropia. So hypermetropia is also known as farsightedness. And you must have guessed it right. Farsightedness means the ability to see distant objects. Means faraway objects can be seen clearly, but nearby objects cannot be seen clearly. Okay? Now we know the near point for a person is 25 centimeter. Means when a person is seeing an object at 25 centimeter, he can see it without strain. Okay? Now this person is far-sighted. Far-sighted means can see far away things, cannot see near things. So the person cannot read a book or any material kept at 25 centimeter. He has to keep it much beyond 25 centimeter. Means he has to put it far from his eyes to see it clearly. Now why does this defect occur? This occurs because the lens has become thin. Now when the lens has become thin, it should converge the light. So the lens is thinner, it converts the light behind the retina. The image is formed behind the retina and hence not seen clearly. Now why does this effect arise? The focal length of the eye lens is too long. So focal length, when is the focal length long? When the eye lens is thinner, the focal length is long, or the eyeball has become too small. Okay, there are two reasons why hypermetropia can occur. So here light has to be converged, means brought together. The light is converging here beyond the retina, it has to be converged on the retina. So you need a converging lens. So a convex lens is a converging lens. Bring lights together. So convex lens of appropriate power will converge the light and put the image exactly on the retina, and hence the person can see clearly. So you can see this is the normal near position of the eye, okay, but the person has to push it, the object farther away. Nearby objects cannot be seen clearly. So because these nearby objects cannot be seen clearly, a Convex lens is used which converges the light and makes the image formed on the retina. So how will we see the difference between myopia and hypermetropia? This can be a 2 or a 3 mark question. So first the definition. Myopia is nearsightedness, means near objects can be seen clearly, far away objects are not seen clearly. In hypermetropia, far away objects are seen clearly, nearby objects are not seen clearly. Second difference. In myopia, the lens remains thick. In hypermetropia, the lens remains thin. Third difference, in myopia, the image is formed before the retina. In hypermetropia, the image is formed after the retina or behind the retina. And fourth thing, for myopia, we need a concave lens, corrective concave lens. In hypermetropia, we need a corrective convex lens. So these are the four differences. First, the definition, myopia and hypermetropia. Myopia, thickening of lens. Hypermetropia, thinning of lens. Myopia, images formed before the retina. Hypermetropia, images formed behind the retina. In myopia, we need a corrective concave lens. In hypermetropia, we need a corrective convex lens. So this is the difference between hypermetropia and myopia. A question of 2 marks can be asked. If it is of 3 marks, then you need to draw the diagram also. And if you are asked only myopia or hypermetropia, then you have to draw all these 3 diagrams to show normal vision, to show defect vision, and to show the corrective vision. In both the questions, in myopia and hypermetropia, asked separately, you have to explain it fully and even draw these diagrams. Then we have presbyopia. Now, what is presbyopia? This is not myopia or hypermetropia, but it is little like hypermetropia. Here, the accommodation eye decreases with aging. So what happens with age? With age, the person's ciliary muscles become weak. So because of aging, the near point gradually recedes away, means the near point goes further away. It is difficult to see nearby objects. You can see it is like hypermetropia. Far away objects can be seen, but nearby objects cannot be seen. So this defect is called presbyopia. Now the only difference between these two is, this is generally coming with aging because of weakening ciliary muscles. There we saw it can happen to elongation or rounding of the eyeball. So this is mainly due to aging. And what happens with aging? It's a gradual weakening of the ciliary muscles, and flexibility of the eye lens is also getting lesser. So this is the presbyopia. It is similar to that of hypermetropia. But sometimes a person may suffer both from myopia and hypermetropia. So which lens they will need? They will not need only a concave or only a convex. They will need a bifocal lens, which is both a convex and concave lens. So they are both concave and convex lens. The upper portion consists of concave lens to see far. Okay, it facilitates distant vision. The lower part is a convex lens. This facilitates near vision. So if you have got some old person in your house, and if you look at their spectacles, they will have dual lenses. Now presbyopia occurs, like we have seen, presbyopia occurs with aging. Yes, but today we see many youngsters also wearing glasses. Why? Because they have lost the normal vision. So there are some defects in the eye, and it is caused because of certain reasons. Vitamin E is very good for eyesight. Vitamin A is obtained from carrots. And sometimes we see keep the objects too near. Now because of the mobiles and the computer screens, we are holding the screen nearer to the eyes than 25 centimeter. This causes strains on the eye, and even the head starts to pain. So for normal vision, any object should be at least kept at a distance of 25 centimeter from the eye. All this care needs to be taken. Person should take good care of the eye. Secondly, our ciliary muscles also need exercise. The lens has to also be given exercise. So when you are reading, when you are studying, do not continuously look into a book. After 10 minutes of reading, try to see a distant object for 1 or 2 minutes and get back to your reading. Why? Because when you constantly see nearby objects, the ciliary muscles are getting strained. So see a distant object, let your ciliary muscles relax and contract, and then come back to your reading. So little bit of care has to be taken. Even while watching TV, yes, a TV is kept at a distance, so it is not an issue. But while reading from a mobile or the book, after continuous reading, try to see a distant object. So constantly keep on changing the objects that you see. We cannot see nearby objects for a very long time. So such care has to be taken for the normal functioning of the eye and to keep the eye healthy. So in this part of the lesson, the first part of the lesson, we have seen the structure of the human eye, we have seen the working of the human eye, and we have seen the defects caused by the human eye. Okay, and there are corrective measures also. So in case we have got a defective eye, then we can always wear the proper lens for clear vision. Now once we have the vision, we move to the colorful world around us. All the phenomena around us, the colorful flowers, the green trees, we watch them, we see them. So let us see now how our eyes help us to see the colorful world. Okay, now before we go to the colorful world, there is a little information here. We just read it. When you get the time, you can pause the video and read it. This is some information on eye donation. Yes, when a person has died, the person can donate his or her eyes. Now, a dead body does not need eyes, but the eyes can be used for some blind person and they will be able to see the world. There are some things written here like the eyes must be removed within 4 to 6 hours of death, but the person should have made a will or an agreement that is ready to donate the eyes. Eye removal only takes 10 to 15 minutes. Yes, the eye bank team will come and take the eyes. It's a very simple process. But people who are infected because of AIDS, hepatitis B or C, rabies, acute leukemia, tetanus, chlorella, they cannot donate the eyes. But anyway, the person who are normal, people who are diabetic, have hypertension or asthma patients cannot donate the eye, but a healthy person should donate the eye because it will help some other person see the world. Okay, this is just for information's sake. Now we go to refraction. Okay, but before we go to refraction, we'll see the difference between a glass slab and a prism. So in the previous chapter, you did refraction in a glass slab. Here we are going to do refraction in a prism. Now what difference can you see between both of them? You can see in a glass slab, this is the first surface where the refraction takes place, and this is the second surface, and both these surfaces are parallel to each other. So you can see even this normal and this normal are both parallel to each other. In a prism, this is the first surface and this is the second surface, and they are not parallel. They have got an angle A between them. This angle A is called the angle of prism. So what difference can you see here? That in a glass slab, the two surfaces are parallel. In prism, they are not parallel. So what happens in a glass slab? The incident ray and the emergent ray are both parallel. Can you see that? They both are parallel. Okay? This is called lateral displacement. We did in the previous chapter. And we also studied in lateral displacement. Yes? Lateral displacement occurs because the emergent ray, the incident ray and the emergent ray are parallel. Now we did in the previous chapter, lateral displacement depends upon angle of incidence, thickness of the glass slab and wavelength of the light. So this we did in the previous chapter, lateral displacement. You can revise it one more time. Now when you move to a prism, like I said, the surfaces of the prism are not parallel. A triangular glass prism has two triangular bases and three lateral surfaces. And these surfaces are inclined to each other. So like I said, the angle between the two lateral surfaces is called the angle of the prism. Now what you can observe here, this is the incident ray. Yes, at the first surface it is bending, at the other surface it is bending. So if there was no prism, the light would have gone straight, but it has bent. So the bending here is called angle D, or the angle of deviation. So the only thing you can see here is, in a glass slab, the incident ray and the emergent ray are parallel. In a prism, the incident ray and emergent ray are not parallel, but they make an angle which we call the angle of deviation. So let us see the refraction of light through a prism. So observe the diagram. PE is the incident ray. So this is PE, which is the incident ray. EF is the refracted ray. Now I draw the normal to the surface. This is air and we have glass prism. So when light enters from air to glass, it will bend towards the normal. So it is bending towards the normal. At the other surface, at this point, this is the normal. Now light is going back from glass to air. It is bending away from the normal. Here it is going away from the normal. Here it was going towards the normal. Yes? So it bends, first it bends towards the normal. At the second surface, light has gone from glass to air. It has bent away from the normal. So, like I said, the shape of the prism makes the emergent ray bend at an angle to the direction of the incident ray. This angle is called the angle of deviation. You can see, like I said, this angle. The light was going like this, incident without the prism, and it has bent till here. So that is the angle of deviation. So this is what happens when light passes through a glass prism. Okay, now there are certain conditions here we need to see. Okay, what you can see, now what is this experiment done actually? There are two pins P and Q. So white sheet is taken, the prism is placed on the white sheet and the outline is drawn of the prism. Then a ray is drawn, two pins are pushed inside P and Q. Then looking from the other side of the prism, looking from here, two more pins are put R and S such that all the four pins are in a straight line. And when you draw the diagram, you get something of this sort. So we have got, this is the incident ray, this is the refracted ray, this is the emergent ray. And there is an angle between the incident ray and the emergent ray called the angle of deviation. Now, there is a little derivation here. If you want, we can do it. But you will have to see, there is one rule here. It is not the part of the syllabus, but even then, a little bit of mathematics we can see. Look at triangle AEF. If you look at triangle AEF, what you can see in this triangle? Now let me call this angle R1 and let me call this angle R2. Try to observe clearly. This angle is R1, this is R2. Now this is the normal to the surface. So this angle will be 90 degree. So this angle here I will call theta 1. So how much is theta 1? Theta 1 is 90 minus R1. I hope you understood. This is the normal which is perpendicular to the surface. So this is 90 degree. But since this angle is R1, this angle is 90 minus R1. Similarly, if I call this angle theta 2, this is R2 and total is 90. So what we have, theta 2 equal to 90 minus R2. Now in triangle AEF, angle A plus theta 1 plus theta 2. See, we have got angle A, theta 1 and theta 2, three angles of a triangle. The sum should be 180 degree. So we have angle A plus theta 1. What is theta 1? 90 minus R1 plus theta 2, 90 plus R2 equal to 180. So 90 plus 90 is 180 gets cut. Sorry, this will be minus. So angle A is equal to R1 goes on this side, R2 goes on this side, R1 plus R2. Okay, this is equation 1. Angle A is equal to R1 plus R2. Clear till here? Now you see what is R1. Okay, now we'll have to see something else. This is angle I and this angle. Both will be equal. Why? These two angles are vertically opposite angles. Right? So, how much will this angle be? If you followed, I'll change color to make you see. Look at angle NEQ. NEQ and GEN. They both are equal because they are vertically opposite. Right? So how much is this angle? This angle is angle I minus angle R1. So this angle I'll write here. Let me call it what? Let me call it A. Angle A equal to angle I minus angle R1. Similarly, this angle and this angle, they both are equal, vertically opposite. Let me call this B. So B is equal to angle E minus angle R2. Now look at this deviation, angle D. So if you look at this triangle here, then this is the external angle. External angle is the sum of internal opposite angles. So angle D equal to A plus B. So angle D is equal to angle I minus angle R1 plus angle E minus angle R2. I can write this as angle I plus angle E minus, I'll put both inside the bracket, so minus I took outside, angle R1 plus angle R2. So angle D is equal to angle I plus angle E minus, what is R1 plus R2? A. So we have angle A, or we can just write angle D plus angle A equal to angle I plus angle E. So angle of incidence plus angle of emergence equal to angle of prism plus angle of deviation. Okay. Now what you can also see, this is angle I. If I keep on increasing the angle I, angle of incidence I keep on increasing, the angle of emergence will also increase. And if I decrease the angle of incidence, then the angle of emergence will also decrease. So when I keep on decreasing the angle of incidence, the angle of emergence decreases, but only up to a certain point. After that, when I decrease it further, it starts to increase again. Are you trying to understand? As I keep on decreasing the angle of incidence, the angle of emergence, or the angle of deviation, sorry. As I keep on changing the angle of incidence, the angle of deviation keeps on changing, decreasing. There comes a point when it becomes minimum. After that, when I decrease the angle of incidence, the angle of deviation again starts to increase. So there is a point where it becomes minimum, and that is called angle of minimum deviation. Now just remember, in the condition of minimum deviation, the refracted ray will become parallel to the base of the prism. This is just for your information, just remember. When the angle is minimum deviation, the refracted ray will become parallel to the base of the prism, that is condition 1. And the second condition, angle of incidence will be equal to angle of emergence. Now, this mathematical part is not in the textbook, but it is for your understanding. Try to understand. It might help you in the future. When the condition of, so this is a equilateral prism. Equilateral prism means what? Each angle is 60 degree. In equilateral prism, this is equilateral prism. In the condition of minimum deviation, the refracted ray becomes parallel to the base, one thing, and the angle of incidence is equal to angle of emergence. This is not part of the textbook, but this is for your understanding. Try to see it in detail and try to understand. So I'm going to end this lecture here. So what we have done in the lecture today, we have seen the defects of vision and we have seen refraction of light in a glass prism. So we had already seen the refraction of light in a glass slab. In the glass slab also, light moves from air to glass to air. In prism also it moves from air to glass to air. But in both the cases, in the glass slab, the two surfaces are parallel. In a prism, the two surfaces are not parallel but make an angle A. So these are the conditions you need to know, and then we'll move to the next part of the lesson in the next lecture. So I'm going to end here. Thank you.